Today, we're talking about an ESPN article that suggests that the Chicago Bulls will make the playoffs this season. And so before we go ahead and we jump into it, I first want to remind you to slam dunk on that subscribe button, just like Matas Buzelis slam dunks in games. And so in exchange for slamming on that subscribe button, I'm going to give you nothing but daily content around the Chicago Bulls. And so make sure that you hit that like, you hit that subscribe, and you join the Chicago Bulls Insider family as we talk nothing but Chicago Bulls basketball. And so with that being said, let's go ahead and let's jump into it as we are talking about playoffs this season for the Chicago Bulls. And so if you've not got a chance to see this, this is on ESPN.com. This is under this article title. This is written by Kevin Pelton. And so within this article, what's happening here is that they are simulating the entire NBA season. And this is a stat-based projection. And so within this article, it has the Chicago Bulls finishing at 41-41, which is the ninth seed in the Eastern Conference. It has the Chicago Bulls going on to take on the Boston Celtics, where they beat them in the play-in. Then they turn around and they beat the Miami Heat in the play-in to get the 8th seed. The Chicago Bulls move on to take on the Orlando Magic. They get beat there 4-1. And then it has the Orlando Magic going ahead and winning the NBA Finals here against the Warriors 4-3. And so it talks about just some key dates within the schedule here. And so looking at the standings. And so getting to that 41-41 mark, it says that the Bulls would be 7-18 through December the 25th. It says that the Bulls would be 26-29 through All-Star break. Then heading into April, they would be 38-39. And then by the end of the season, they would be 41-41 to get the 9th seed. And this is the last thing that it mentions here in the article for the Chicago Bulls. And so not only would they have a good season here, but it says that the Bulls would get an added bonus. And so it says this, consider the Chicago Bulls the big winners of the play-in tournament, a place where they've got plenty of experience. Not only did Chicago win in Miami to claim the number 8 seed in the East playoffs, but the Bulls also landed a first-round pick when Portland capped its unexpected season by winning at the Target Center to earn the 7th spot in the West. And so not only would the Bulls make the playoffs, but they would get that Portland pick to come on over here. And so we know that that pick would convey here if the Chicago Bulls go ahead, or not the Chicago Bulls, but if the Portland Trailblazers go ahead and make the playoffs. And so they would have another first-round pick. And so, look, I love this because this would be a huge win for the Chicago Bulls because, first of all, you're talking about the team getting the record of 41-41, and that's much better than what the team has done the last couple seasons at 39-43. Next, you're talking about the team getting out of the play-in situation, and this is with, a rebuilt roster, which is also, still in the process of building some more. It's gotten younger and everything else, so that would be, a positive sign. And then lastly, if the Blazers were to make the playoffs, yes, you would get the first-round pick, to go along with what you have as well, because we know that the Bulls own their pick. And so, look, a win-win situation here. And I think that when you're talking about experience, I think that, these younger players would get some good experience. And I think that this would continue, to kind of feed that hunger here for this team, because I do think that this team is coming in hungry this season. I've talked about that with the preseason thus far. And so now I wanted to shift focus and just talk about really what it would take for the Bulls to really make this happen, because I think that this would be great for the Bulls if they could do it. And so I think that the first thing that would have to happen here is that Matas Buzelis would have to continue really progressing the way that he's doing right now. Because right now in preseason, I think he's done a terrific job as far as getting downhill and scoring at the basket. I think that he's showing just a lot more confidence, with his three-point shot and everything else. And I think that really you might see his game expand even more here once Coby White gets back. You might see him, start to get to the mid-range and get the pull-ups and things like that. Perhaps he starts to get to the free throw line a little bit more. Defensively, if he goes ahead and he gets to the place that he wants to defensively, you're talking about the fact that he might get some offense with steals and things like that and getting out in the break. We saw that he had a nice little alley-oop from Josh Giddey in this last game. And so, that that's going to be a part of the Bulls with the fast break and everything else. And so I'm saying all that to say this, that Matas Buzelis looks like he's headed to a real second-year breakout. And I think that would have to happen here for the Bulls to really go and get this 41-41 record, hopefully better than that. But to get to the playoffs, he would certainly have to step up. And then next, I think the next thing that would have to happen here for the Bulls would be that you need to see something defensively. Like that just has to happen for the Bulls in order to go ahead and get to the playoffs. I think that if you see, Isaac Okoro, continue on and just really help transform the team identity along with Ayo Dosunmu and what he can do defensively here with his two-way ability. And then also, I think that another thing that's going to happen here too is that you need players that are on the roster to take a step up and just really collectively get better on that end and still be able to contribute on the offense, but mainly defensively here. And so I'm talking about, Julian Phillips, Dalen Terry, who seems to be, just that guy that seems to be really the enforcer. And I could see that Julian Phillips using his athleticism and things like that to get steals, get into the open floor and stuff, just like what we talked about with Matas Buzelis, along with Noah Singh, which we'll talk about that in a moment. But I do think that, some of these younger players step up defensively. That would mean Patrick Williams as well. Trey Jones, I think that he plays some solid defense, but I just think, overall as a team, the identity would change and they would be able to figure out a way to be physical, stop teams from eating in the paint, and just be able to use that physicality to get some steals, turnovers, deflections, and things like that, which is something that this team has really struggled with and they're trying to fix, along with the Chargers too, which has been talked about really throughout training camp and preseason. And so the next thing that I think would have to happen here, for the Bulls to get to the playoffs is that you need these younger players to play well. And I'm talking about like the rookies, especially. Like I think that Noah Singh would have to take like a step, just like Matas Buzelis. Like I think that if he could do that, that would be huge, for this team. I think just getting further than they've been the last couple seasons. I think that, look, man, if he could show that he can play major minutes in year one, can you imagine really what that front line would look like if you had Matas Buzelis? He's eating. Then you have Noah Singh. He's eating as well. And I'm talking about offensively. Both of these guys are figuring out ways to, block shots and make it tough, on opposing offenses. And then you still would have Coby White. You still have Josh Giddey. Hopefully you have Vooch playing at a high level as well, along with, some other players that are stepping in, Julian Phillips, Dalen Terry, Patrick Williams, and kind of the list goes on there. I think that this would be huge, for the Bulls to really take that step. And so I think that has to happen. And maybe even Lachlan Ubrick would have to step up here in a big way, because I've said this before, if the team decides to move on from Vooch and it's just not clicking, Lachlan Ubrick might have to get out there and he might have to contribute. And I mean, he hasn't looked bad in preseason play. In fact, I think he's looked pretty encouraging here. And so I'd like to see some more minutes, but I understand that, look, right now, he's behind Jalen Smith. He's also behind Zach Collins and Vooch as well. And so, I could see him slide in there and, just kind of have, a nice season here for the Bulls. And so that would certainly help them there. And then next, I think, finally for this team to take that step forward and, perhaps, just go ahead and get to this record like this simulation said, you would have to have like a big time performance from your key stars here. And so I think that between Coby White and then also to, Josh Giddey or somebody is going to have to play at a high level here. And so I'm thinking like, you're probably trending towards maybe an all-star type of season here, or you're like right there. But I think that that would have to be the key, and it's just going to have to be consistent basketball. It would be something that you could possibly do it like it was described here in the article, where yes, it could be a slow start and the team does pick it up. Like I do feel like that that's something that is very possible because we saw it last season. It just means that they would pick it up, sooner than they did a season ago. But you would love to see a solid start. And that could be possible if you are seeing, some major performances here, from your key players. And so that would mean that Coby White would come back, obviously from this calf that he's dealing with. And, he would just hit the ground running, kind of like, just really starting off from where he was a season ago, really kind of increasing his scoring. We talked about the fact that he would be stepping into a role just like he was a year ago. And so he doesn't have to shift there. And so I think that that certainly helps him. And then also, too, just the chemistry that you're going to get with Josh Giddey and just the way that he distributes the basketball and stuff like that, that would mean that, he's getting it done at a higher level than he was a year ago. You're probably seeing maybe some more triple doubles from Josh Giddey and things like that. I think the turnovers collectively for the group go down. They figure out a way to then also figure out more so what to do in the half court game. And so, they're still playing fast, but they're playing with a purpose. And when they do have to slow down just a bit, they're able to still get some good offense here in the half court. And so it all ties together. That's why I'm like, look, if you add Matas Buzelis, he's, going ahead and he's headed towards a breakout here, just all kind of pieces together here for them offensively, and they figure some things out. And so I think that those things would have to happen, for this team to make this prediction happen. And so anyway, you guys let me know in the comments here what you guys are thinking. Do you think that the Bulls could finish at 41-41? Do you think that they could finish better? Do you think that they would finish worse? I'd love to hear what you're thinking there. And then also, too, what do you guys think about the fact that if the Bulls were to make the playoffs in this scenario, they would also get the Portland pick as well? And so I do think that that would be a huge win-win situation. And I would think that with that, and you going out in the draft, you have your pick and you have Portland's pick, I think that that would certainly help change the direction of this team just more quickly, because I think that they come back the next season after that. Hopefully you take care of business in the draft and you get some players maybe that can immediately contribute to what you're doing here, because it would also, too, I think, kind of it would show you that AK and his plan and what the front office is trying to do here, it actually would be working if the Bulls were able to do this. And so anyway, you guys let me know in the comments what you guys are thinking. And as we always say, look, go Bulls, and I will see you guys on the next one. All right, peace.